I'm Jeff Stinson.
I'm Kim Stinson, and we've got 6 kids.
Twins in the middle.
Yep. So it keeps us pretty busy.
I think emergency preparedness is important to me because it makes sense in a lot of ways.
And it definitely provides peace of mind when you know what the plan is, that you have the supplies you need, so that when a disaster comes, you don't just fall apart. You're ready to spring into action and do what needs to be done. Well, I think sometimes there's a little bit of a stigma for people who are always looking to prepare for that next big disaster. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's just normal common sense. And it wasn't like, so glad we have those supplies because there's this big disaster that we're worried about.
Run for the underground bunker.
Run for the underground. It wasn't like that. It was just like, oh, glad that we thought to have some of those things because I don't have to really worry.
Glad we have an extra pack of toilet paper. Glad we, have some extra salt. Just things, so that you don't just wait till you're down to your very last of something before you go pick up some more. Well, and I guess even when COVID first came out, of course that affected us and the entire world. But, for quite a while you couldn't get some basic supplies at the grocery stores. And, just having some of those basic supplies, doesn't have to even be a huge stockpile of anything, but just some basic supplies to get you through a little bit of a rough patch.
You don't wait till there's something you need in your home, you're down to the last one. So you don't wait till you're down to the last roll of toilet paper, in this case, to then go to the store and buy more. You always have a little bit so that you're never really without. Yeah, so when COVID first started and I realized that there are things we might not be able to get, I was really glad that we did have a lot of those things already in our storage. And one thing that I particularly was concerned about was diapers. Usually I am waiting until I have the last, little bit of diapers before running to the store, and because that was a paper product and something that was easily disposable, but everyone who has babies needs.
They disappeared quick.
Diapers disappeared really fast.
Yeah.
And I was without. And I was really grateful that as soon as COVID hit, it did come to mind. And so I had ordered some washable diapers. And so there were a few days that spanned where I wasn't able to get diapers at the store, but I had these washable ones.
I think one other thing that we had a little bit of a scare with when COVID first hit was some of our kids have some medical procedures that we have to help them through or had to at that time. And just having the supplies for that, we suddenly felt very short on those supplies, and it was hard to get them. We were able to eventually get some, and it all worked out. But it gave us a real sense of maybe we weren't as prepared for individual medical needs as we thought maybe we were. A lot of times you look at the general. Do I have my 72-hour kit? Do we have a food supply? But do you have what you personally need? Spare glasses, extra contacts, medicines, whatever you need for you personally, medical-wise.
We actually use things from our emergency supplies pretty regularly. There's times where I'll say, okay, let's get out that dehydrated food because it's been sitting there on the shelf for 5 years, and I don't want it to go bad, for one, but number two, we need to practice eating it. My kids need to become accustomed to the taste of it or texture, because the last thing I want in an emergency situation to also, on top of that, be dealing with kids who are like, ooh, this is gross. I'm sorry, I can't.
This tastes different. I don't like it.
I'm sorry, I can't go get your regular mac and cheese because because people are buying up everything at the store and your regular mac and cheese isn't on the shelf. So we're having to try something different, and then having a mutiny. And so, it's good to be using those supplies. I don't think we should be afraid to use them. We don't need to tuck them away and say we're never going to use them in case there's an emergency. Use them, replace them, make a normal part of your rotation. Well, and I actually got a list from your mom that showed, okay, here's the basics that you need, here's the things that are nice to have, and so I had that in hand and was able to look through our pantry and say, okay, we have this, oh, but we don't have this, and kind of make a list of things. And, it's expensive to go get it all at once, but we just add a little bit over time, and until we have a good supply.
And I think, Kim did a really good job of that, building it over time, because, the idea of emergency preparedness is so big. It can be overwhelming. Where do you take it to? Are you just going to have some extra shampoo and that's all you have? Or are you going to have the bunker buried in the backyard that's stocked full of stuff to live in there for a year? Or somewhere in between. And which disaster are you preparing for? For earthquakes, for tornadoes, for floods, for pandemics, for what is it you even prepare for? And so I think a lot of times it gets so overwhelming. But at least like with food storage, when you're at the store and you see salt on sale, we'll buy 2. Or 3, or get a big bucket of it. And, salt's not very expensive. And you can easily do the same with toilet paper. You're like, well, how many rolls do we go through in a week? You kind of do the math, and you're like, well, how much do we need? Oh, I just need 2 packages from Costco. The big, well, there we go. That's easy. That's not even expensive. And so sometimes you can just kind of do it over time, and it grows gradually and naturally. You don't have to make a big plan.
Purchase.
Yeah, a big purchase, or even a big plan of here's my goal of then I'm prepared for an emergency. That's just too overwhelming and it doesn't work out. And I think if even a way to start, if you have nothing, is get a grocery bag, put a pocket knife in it, a bottle of water, a flashlight, and a box of Band-Aids. That's a start. And that's probably more prepared than a lot of your neighbors are. And, in an emergency, you can grab that and run out the door, and you've got some things to help you, and as, as you have that, then later you might come across an extra backpack at a garage sale. So you just upgraded your kit, and then you might go, oh, you know what? You find some first aid kits and you replace that with your box of Band-Aids. And it just, over time, gradually, naturally, you become more and more prepared with just things that you think of to change what you have or to add to what you have. And it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing. It's more like a state of mind. If you just kind of have it rattling around the back of your head of what if. I don't have to be a prepper, but I can just have in the back of my head, what if my car broke down right now? Am I prepared for that?
I remember one of the first things we did when we were married was do our 72-hour kits. And we each had our backpack, and we had our list of supplies that needed to be in that. And we'd gotten those backpacks, we received those backpacks from your mom, and they had supplies in them. But then as we went through each of those, we thought of things that we needed individually. And I think you'd mentioned before, like an extra pair of glasses, and I put some extra contacts in. Some clothes that fit me, different things that were beyond what was already in there. We individualized our 72-hour kits.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really changed with our disaster kits, our 72-hour kits, is
Since having kids,
is that it's fun to pull them out, and all the kids know that they have this special backpack that's for an emergency. And so every once in a while we'll pull them out just to even remind ourselves what's in them. They can sit there for 6-8 months, and you pull them out and you're like, oh, that was a good idea. I forgot that was even in there. But it's fun for the kids to see it and then be like, oh, that's my coloring book and that's my box of crayons. And the older ones are like, oh, I got a pocket knife in there, and so it's fun for them to just be aware of it. And then we'll update it as the kids grow, things change. The 15-year-old doesn't need the coloring book anymore, and so we'll kind of change things as we go along, and as they get older, we'll even let them, work on their own 72-hour kits and put it back together and add anything to it that they want to, and kind of coach them on that so they don't overload their pack with silly things.
Well, and I think another thing we had to think about when having kids was that, are they going to be able to carry their own packs? Mm-hmm. And so we started going, okay, we've got this backpack for each kid, but is it going to be realistic for the 4-year-old to be able to carry all of these things? And what about, because we have our 72-hour kits, but then we also have a family kit that has things that the family would share amongst us, like a little stove and things like that. And it's like, well, who's going to carry that? And so then we thought, well, I think it was your mom that introduced backpacks with wheels. We're like, that's fantastic, because the 4-year-old might not be able to carry their backpack, but they can pull it, mm-hmm. And so things like that you have to think about. Can they handle are they going to be able to carry it themselves? And
even our family kit is a duffel bag with wheels on it. So, I could be wearing my backpack, but then I can be pulling the family kit behind me. And so, it's taken us many, many years to get to where we even have the kits for everybody and to where they're at, and the family kit, and so like I said before, it's a process. We didn't start that way. We kind of add to it over time, and once a year or maybe even every other year we pull them out and we kind of work on them and upgrade them and fix them a little, or thoughts come to mind of, hey, I should add that to it, or what if this happens, maybe I could use that one thing.
What we should probably do too is, because we have to rotate the food in it ever so often, is we should get them out, the food kits from the 72-hour kits out, and have the kids eat them and see if there's things that they are not even willing to eat. And maybe make sure we need to repack it with stuff that they'll actually eat.
Yeah, just get a bunch of cookies and shove them in there.
Yeah, just a bunch of cookies. Got to keep spirits up. Just fill this 72-hour kit with cookies.
3 days of cookies.
3 days worth of cookies.
I do remember one thing that that happened to me once. Is somebody that I knew was moving out of their house, and I was there shortly after they moved out, and found some things they left behind, and one of them was a 72-hour kit, and I asked them, I said, do you want this? And their response was, no, that's garbage, I've never needed it. And I always just remember that. I always just think, well,
good.
Thank goodness you've never needed your 72-hour kit, but that doesn't make it garbage. I remember my mom saying once, well, you've never needed life insurance, right? Does that mean it's garbage? Does that mean you don't need it? So it's an insurance type of thing, and I think, again, the biggest thing is just don't get overwhelmed by it. You just gradual, start with what you have around the house, and just let the ideas come, and start with a grocery bag and a pocket knife, and just see where it goes from there. You got to start somewhere, and if that's what you have around the house, that's enough, until you find something to add to it, and then add that. I think with emergency plans, I think that's where we lack a little, and that's something we've even talked about that we need to work on. We've talked as a family kind of around the dinner table of, what would we do if there was a fire in the house, and where would we meet outside of the house? And so we've kind of talked about that a little, but I don't think we've ever really driven it home with the kids.
We've talked about a meeting point. We've said, well, this is where we're going to meet. But if we're not talking about it often enough, it's going to be forgotten.
Or even practicing it.
Yeah,
that's something we really need to work on with the kids. And even
although one of the kids one of the kids knows how to climb out their windows, so
yeah.
At least a couple of them do.
Yeah. So they could.
That's not an issue. They practice climbing out of their windows quite a bit, so we're good in that area.
Yeah, we're good there.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, just talking about what to do, and I think we have talked with them about what to do in an earthquake. We've talked about get under a table. And, just stay where you're at. Get under a table, wait. Don't be running around, things like that.
One thing we have done a lot with our kids to help them feel more in control in a different kind of environment if suddenly things changed is we take them camping a lot. And, not that necessarily in every emergency or maybe not even in very many you would end up living outside of your home in the woods, but it familiarizes them with a different scenarios of living and taking care of yourself and
not in your home,
and even using our gear and things like that to just be out and know how to pull out a little burner and cook some food.
Well, and that makes sense in the event where you've got to leave your home, but even in the home,
maybe the power's out and you need to cook in a different way.
Yeah, but I think as far as emergency plans, like if this happens, we all do this. If this happens, we all do this. Is something we've probably lacked in, I think.
Yeah.
The advice I would give to families who have, a lot of children and are very busy is that you are really busy. And so it's hard to maybe make emergency preparedness a priority. It's not something you always think about. But I think it's important. What's important to think about is that when you have a big family, it's even more important to be prepared. You have even more people that you're responsible for and even more going on. And so the more prepared you are, the less chaos, the less fear, the less worry that you're going to be dealing with. And kids need to feel safe. And when there's an emergency, if they know that mom and dad have a plan and you're calm, they're going to be calm too. And I think that goes a long way in the event of an emergency.